The air was already gone from my lungs when the countdown hit 90 seconds, and 3 pairs of stalked eyes were watching me through the glass, waiting for me to fall. I was strapped into a metal frame at the center of the training bay, wires taped along my arms, a mask pressed over my mouth. The chamber around me had been drained of pressure a minute earlier, and the temperature had dropped so fast that frost was forming on the inside of the glass. This was supposed to be the moment I gave up. This was supposed to be the moment I proved every rumor about soft, fragile humans was true. It was not going to be that moment. The cadet who had brought me here was named Rennick. He stood just outside the chamber with his arms folded across his pale chest, his eyes fixed on the numbers ticking down on the monitor beside him. 2 other cadets stood with him, Tallis and Boro, both watching me the way people watch something they expect to break. Rennick had found me an hour earlier in the hallway outside the mess hall, surrounded by a small crowd of students from a dozen different worlds. He had smiled in that stiff, careful way his species smiled, like the motion did not come naturally to his face. "You have heard the stories," he had said. "Humans cannot survive without thick air and warm sun. You are the softest species to ever leave your homeworld. I only want to show you the truth, so you do not embarrass yourself later in front of the instructors." I remember laughing before I even answered him, not because I was trying to be brave, because it was actually funny. "Show me," I had said. That was how I ended up here, strapped into a chamber built to test how long a body could survive without proper air, watching my own breath freeze in front of my face, while 3 strangers waited for me to panic. The monitor beside Rennick clicked to 2 minutes. My chest ached in a familiar way, tight and cold, but not frightening. I had felt this exact tightness before, many times, back on the planet where I grew up. My homeworld did not have a name that sounded dangerous. It was just called Karen. It did not have poison air or crushing gravity or monsters in the dark. It had something simpler and, in its own way, far more demanding. It had storms that arrived without warning. On Karen, the sky could turn from clear blue to solid gray in less than a minute. The pressure would drop so fast that your ears would pop twice before you understood what was happening, and then the wind would come, and after the wind came the cold, and after the cold came the kind of silence that told you the worst part was still ahead. We called them dryers, though nobody remembers why. Every child on Karen grew up learning to read the sky the way children on other worlds learn to read words. We did not play tag in the fields the way I heard children play on softer worlds. We played a game called Last Light. The moment the sky turned that particular shade of gray, every child within sight of the storm would drop what they were doing and run for shelter. The rule was simple. Whoever reached the shelter door last had to stand outside a little longer while the others counted, feeling the pressure fall and the air thin around them, learning exactly how their body reacted when the world tried to squeeze the breath out of it. Nobody died playing Last Light. My mother made sure of that. Every child wore a small band around one wrist that would scream a warning if the blood inside us started losing too much oxygen too quickly. A screaming band was the most shameful thing that could happen to you at school. Nobody wanted to be the kid who could not last a few extra seconds outside. I was thinking about all of this while the monitor beside Rennick clicked past 2.5 minutes. Through the mask over my mouth, I began to hum. It was an old tune, one my grandmother used to sing while timing us during storms, the kind of song that climbed higher in pitch the closer danger came. I did not have anyone to sing along with me here, so it came out quiet and slightly off-key, but it steadied me all the same. Rennick's eyes narrowed. I could see him glance toward the technician sitting at the console nearby, a small, nervous man named Aldrich, whose hands were hovering over the controls like he was not sure whether to trust what he was seeing. "Her heart rate is dropping," Aldrich said, his voice tight. "It should be climbing. This does not match any readings we have on file for her species." Boro shifted his weight from one leg to another, his confidence cracking slightly at the edges. "Is the equipment failing?" he asked. The equipment is fine, Aldrich said. She is fine. That is the part I do not understand. 3 minutes passed. Frost had spread across most of the glass now, and my fingers had gone stiff inside my gloves, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, back on a field outside my childhood home, sprinting toward a metal door with my older brother just a step ahead of me, both of us laughing, even as the wind tried to knock us off our feet. I remembered the year I beat his best time by exactly 1 second, and he refused to speak to me for 2 full days afterward. I remembered my mother standing in the doorway with her arms crossed, timing us with an old stopwatch, never once looking worried, because she had grown up the same way and knew exactly what young bodies could endure when they were trained for it early. At 3 minutes and 40 seconds, Aldrich's voice cracked through the speaker inside my chamber. "I am ending the test now," he said. "Her body is behaving like someone in deep rest, not like someone in danger. I do not have a safety protocol for that." The pressure returned to the chamber in a slow hiss, and warm air flooded back in around me. The frost on the glass began to melt in uneven streaks. When the door finally opened, I pulled the mask away from my face and stepped out onto solid footing, popping my ears with a practiced motion that made Talus flinch. "So," I said, looking at the 3 of them, "is that supposed to be the difficult one, or do you have something worse?" Nobody answered right away. A small crowd had gathered near the observation window while I was inside the chamber, and most of them were staring at Rennick now instead of me. I noticed several of them holding up small devices, clearly recording everything that had just happened, and I had a strong feeling this moment was going to travel much further than any of us expected. Rennick recovered first. He always seemed to recover quickly, even when his plans did not go the way he wanted. "What would frighten a child from your world?" he asked, his voice quieter now, almost genuinely curious instead of mocking. I thought about it honestly, because it deserved an honest answer. "Running out of warm water before a bath," I said. "Missing the last transport home before a storm arrived, having your wristband scream in front of the entire class while everyone watched. But if you want to know the thing that actually frightened us, it was not any of that." "What was it?" Talus asked, stepping forward slightly. "Silence," I said. "Real silence. The kind where the wind suddenly stops completely, because that means you are standing in the calm center of the storm, and the second half is about to hit twice as hard as the first." Rennick's arms slowly uncrossed. "That is not the same kind of fear you tested me with today," I added. "You tried to frighten me with an emergency. I trained for emergencies before I could tie my own shoes. If you truly want to frighten someone from my world, you do not reach for the dangerous machine in the corner. You reach for the quiet moment, right before something worse begins." Nobody spoke for a long moment. Aldrich stepped out from behind his console, still looking pale, and walked over to where I stood. "Is any of that true?" he asked quietly. "The storms, the wristbands, the counting." "Every bit of it," I said. "My brother still argues about the timing to this day." A small, surprised laugh escaped him before he could stop it. "Your species is going to be trouble for this entire station," he said. "Only if people keep testing us with things we already survived as children," I said. "Otherwise, we are just going to get extremely good at your training machines." He did not have an answer for that, and honestly, I did not expect one. I walked past Rennick and the others, past the crowd still recording near the window, and out into the corridor, my ears still slightly ringing from the pressure change, my heart finally beating a little faster now that the real challenge, the one of standing there calmly while people waited for me to fail, was finally over. Behind me, I heard Rennick say something quietly to Boro and Talus, his voice no longer holding the same certainty it had carried an hour earlier. I did not need to hear the exact words to know what he was thinking. He had learned something today that no lesson on the station could have taught him, something about the difference between fear and simple familiarity, about how a place that feels dangerous to one person can feel like nothing more than a normal afternoon to someone raised differently. I smiled to myself and kept walking, already wondering what other machines they might try to test me with next, and already certain that whatever it was, it would remind me of home far more than it frightened me.